episode of Another Perspective. September 7th, we're live on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram.
This is the episode of awakeningpodcast.org and joined with Arnold. And as always, we're going to tell you what we're going to do, but we've got a nice picture at the start. And Arnold will actually tell you what that is. I know I jumped to news. Or you do it later, so I get to speak. Yeah, well, fair enough. Yeah. So news has got France prepares for war, workers over billionaires, delivering humanity aid to Gaza, and 7 members of opposition die suddenly. With AI weakens critical thinking. 6G, Salesforce cuts 4,000 jobs, and what AI should be used for. Good news, Caravan. Homes from Wind Turbines. Students see sea turtle conservation and 3D printing glue gun that can create bone grafts directly onto fractures. Health. mRNA vaccines linked to 86 serious neuropsychiatric disorders, regrow natural teeth, global leaders seek immortality, and 3D printing stem cells that can be implanted as brain tissue, and dates. Inspiration, be creative, and veterans to farmers.
So today's picture looks like a Chinese monkeys walking up a hill with, well, it looks like the Chinese wall. And the quote says, "A fool prays for an easier road, a wise man prays for stronger legs." And I think it's a beautiful quote which says that we all try to avoid or escape challenges because we don't want them. But what this quote is saying is like, without challenges, you're not growing. And what I'm adding is we live in a world of dualities. There will be nice things, but there will always be challenges. So make sure that you become stronger in dealing with those challenges. So I think it's indeed a very wise quote.
And I mean, we both have kind of issues with our legs. I mean, I had by the groin, it snapped, and I was told like you'd have to have an operation. They were saying only for younger people you do that. So I feel it all the time, and I know that you were in an accident and you've got issues, but it doesn't stop us in life. We just get on with life, and we try to do as much as we can to stay healthy. So
yeah, we still both walk each day. So and even though it seems easy, but it's not.
Paris tells hospitals in France to prepare for major military engagement in Europe. Official confirmation. The French health minister, Catherine Vautrin, has publicly confirmed that the French government has instructed hospitals to prepare for the possibility of treating thousands of wounded soldiers in the event of a major military conflict. She emphasized that this is a precautionary measure and part of the broader crisis anticipation, not a sign of imminent war. Official directive, a letter from the French health minister dated July the 18th of 2025, was sent to regional health authorities. It instructed hospitals to be ready by March 2026 for a potential major military deployment, specifying readiness to care for 10,000 to 15,000 soldiers, both French and foreign, within a period of 10 to 118 days. Not a sign of imminent war. French officials, including a government spokesman, have clarified that the directive is not an indication of an imminent conflict. Instead, it is part of a broader strategy to ensure the healthcare system is prepared for a range of potential crises, including epidemics, environmental disasters, and military scenarios. I mean, like, we know what they did with their pandemics before. Like, so usually they have these tests and say, oh, what if this happens? So when they say, we're just as a precaution, that has alarm bells ringing all over it. So yeah, it's one to be really careful of.
Yeah, and in the information I found, in your source mentioned 10 to 15,000 people. My source says up to 50,000 beds per month must be ready for mass casualties, and not only French soldiers but wounded troops and civilians from across NATO. So it's totally incredible, especially if you also see it in the light of what we shared here on the show a few weeks ago. What they're doing in England is that they were buying what they call it fatality tents or something like that, where they could put in hundreds of dead people, and that's what they should prepare for. And this is not just for a traffic accident or something. You know, it's really amazing, whether it's a pandemic or a war. This is France and this is England. Well, if you see the pictures of, this is a picture of, well, he's not our friend. This is Macron. He seems to be very good friends with Keith Starmer, the prime minister in England. So why are two of the largest countries in Europe preparing for something awful? That's no coincidence.
It's scary. It's scary.
Huh?
So I'm not sure if it went live on Instagram. If it didn't, apologies. You can help the show by making a donation. Go to awakeningpodcast.org/support or scan the QR code where you can buy us a coffee, orange juice once a month, $5, even if you can afford one. What we're doing in future now, because we've mentioned it a lot of times, we're spending a load of time preparing for this. It's over a day, both of us. Because there's a lot of things that we get and we have to validate it. And there's a lot of stuff out there seems sensational and, oh, this is interesting. And it finds out, yeah, it's a lie. So we have to really filter through all the stuff. We try to share as much as we can, which is true. Not saying that sometimes something can slip through the cracks, but if it does, we put up our hand. But what we're doing is I've got Substack. We're having a subscription. So we're going to actually have a full episode like this on the Substack, but the weekly one will be a lot shorter and we'll cover kind of maybe one, possibly two topics. That'll be maybe 15 minutes. So if you want to subscribe to that, I'll have the link in the show notes for the Substack, and then the show will be put on that. And it'll be we're going to start off at $10 a month. And that helps us with all the time that's going into this.
Workers over billionaires. This is a protest all over the U.S. I'm pretty sure you haven't seen anything in the mass media about this. It was on Labor Day, so which was last Monday, and it said tens of thousands of people, protesters, flooded the street across all 50 states of the U.S. demonstrating where they targeting Trump and what they call a billionaire takeover of government. Well, when this post was written, it was not yet, what happened, I think 2 days ago, there was a dinner in the White House where all the big tech and all the billionaires were invited, from Bill Gates to Zuckerberg to Sam Altman. All these big shot, David Sachs, all these guys are billionaires. They were all in the White House at a dinner. And I tell you, they're not going to talk about soccer or football. So it's very frightening. So I'm happy that the U.S. population is waking up, and they're organizing more than 1,000 events across all major metropolitan areas, up to very small towns. It was organized by the AFL-CIO, which I think is a union, but in partnership with Mayday Strong, a coalition that includes the National Education Association, indivisible, Move On, and dozens of grassroots organizations. So the protests are aimed that we oppose the Trump agenda, because everything we're raising these tariffs, which makes prices of most products, well, not only in the US, but everywhere, but especially prices of products for normal people in the US, they can no longer afford it. So it's on many levels, people are no longer accepting that billionaires are running the show. And again, you just have to Google, and I think it was on Thursday, where the pictures out there of this dinner at the White House. It's extremely frightening, because except for Trump, none of these guys were elected. None of them. So it's like what they're saying is, F you to elections and everything else. We are running a dictatorship. There is no democracy. We are running the show. And we is the combination of folks like Musk and Trump and all these big tech guys who make it possible. So I was kind of relieved that people are waking up in the US in these initiatives, workers over billionaires. So I think it's a beautiful initiative.
And I mean, at that dinner, I mean, I've heard different speeches of it, like, and all it is how much are you going to put into America? Oh, 600 billion over the next few years. Microsoft, oh, we're doing 80 or 90 billion a year. Oh, that's great. Oh, that's great. And they're like complimenting him on being kind of pro AI and everything. These companies are going to come in, and do you think they're going to have individuals working? So they might set up a factory. There won't be people working there. And I think why he has them by the ghoulies, by the balls, for those who don't understand the word ghoulies, is they all need power. And especially these data centers, which we mentioned previously, the States has the most of them. They all need the data centers. So I reckon he's got them, and they have to kind of comply. And that's why they're saying, oh, we move here. But I don't think it's going to bring in jobs. And you're right. Like, I mean, they make it look like, hey, we're the big boys table. And what you've just said, yeah, it's important. People are realizing that. So this is an interesting one. Delivering humanity aid to Gaza. Why their boats are going to Gaza. I mean, over the last few years, we're all seeing so much stuff. We see it in football stadiums and everything. So everyone is aware of what's going on there. The boats are part of a large international effort currently known as the Global Sumud, SUMUD, Flotilla, to deliver humanitarian aid to Gaza and to challenge the ongoing Israeli naval blockade. Gaza is experiencing a catastrophic humanitarian crisis, including famine, mass displacement, and the collapse of essential services due to the blockade and ongoing conflict. The flotilla aims to bring food, medicine, and other vital supplies directly to Gaza's population and to draw global attention to the crisis and the blockade, which is widely condemned by international organizations as a form of collective punishment prohibited under international law. The flotilla is organized by a coalition of international groups, including the Freedom Flotilla Coalition and the Global Movement to Gaza, and involves participants from at least 44 countries. The mission is a civil-led and includes activists, doctors, artists, clergy, and public figures. The boats are carrying humanitarian cargo and are attempting to reach Gaza by sea, operating under the protective international maritime law, which guarantees freedom of navigation and obligates occupying powers to allow humanitarian aid to reach the civilians. Historically, all previous flotilla attempts to reach Gaza since 2010 has been intercepted by Israeli military, often in international waters. The most notable incident was in 2010, MNRA raid, which resulted in the deaths of 10 activists and global condemnation. In most cases, activists are detained and deported, and the aid rarely reaches Gaza. Israel maintains that the blockade is necessary for security reasons, but international legal experts and humanitarian organizations argue that the blockade is illegal and constitutes collective punishment. Given the history and recent threats from Israeli authorities, it is highly likely that the current flotilla will also be intercepted before reaching Gaza. Despite the risks, organized emphasizing the symbolic and humanitarian importance. They're saying Gaza's humanitarian crisis is severe with over 61,000 killed. I reckon it's a lot more, but that's the stats I'm getting. 1.9 million displaced and famine officially declared. The blockade has led to extreme shortages of food, medicine, and clean water. International law requires that humanitarian aid be allowed to reach civilians, and the United Nations and International Court of Justice have called the blockade to be lifted and for aid to be delivered. I think, based on what they've previously done, the fact that there's so many people, 44 countries, lots of the boats, they're all recording. So I'm seeing a lot of the recordings. If they do that, there's a lot of hatred already towards Israel for what they're doing. It's going to 10x if they start doing something here, if they do anything to the boats or take them off, because these people are really trying to help the children and all those that are in famine. So it'll be an interesting one to see. It should be by next week that we'll see more information on that.
Yeah, in addition to that, there's something which I find quite interesting happening is that cycling, there is the Tour of Spain, the Vuelta, in everywhere along the road and in the towns where they're finishing, Spanish people are waving the Palestinian flags. It's full of Palestinian flags, not just one or whatever. It's boatloads of these flags. Well, at some point they even interrupted the tour, which is not good because then you negatively impact the bikers who got nothing to do with it. But still, there's an Israeli team participating. But it's everywhere. It's on TV. You cannot ignore it. It's like even in the middle of a mountain, people are waving the Palestinian flag. So I think it's an excellent way because people watch the sport. But now it's like you cannot ignore it because it's everywhere. It's totally everywhere. But the strange thing is when we were blocking Russia, because they invaded Ukraine, is like they were no longer allowed to participate in international sports games, like the Olympics, like everything. Russian teams are not allowed. But why are Israeli teams still allowed? And what they're doing is just as horrible as what the Russians are doing. So it's really strange. We as a world agree that what Israel is doing is fine and what Russia is doing is not fine. We block their assets and the money and everything, and innocent sports people are not allowed to, basically do their job. But for Israelis, it doesn't matter. And even if people trying to give help, I love an organization in this case called World Central Kitchen. It's from Jose Andres. He's a famous chef. Incredible good work. But a few of those people of that organization were killed. So we're measuring with two measures. It's like what we do to Russian people and everything versus the Israeli people. And I'm saying, well, let's say what's happening in Gaza is just as horrible as what's happening in the Ukraine. So we need to stop this because it's our humanity as well.
I listened to just this morning. This guy was with his wife recording, and he was just saying, "Tell me a Polish joke." And I told him a Polish joke. Tell me a French joke. Tell me an American joke. And then he said, "Tell me a Jewish joke." And it refused to. And then he said, "Hey, you've just told me this, and it wouldn't do it." And he's recording, the voice of ChatGPT. I presume it was ChatGPT. It could be a different one, but it would not do it. And it was just interesting to see that.
So when you talk about elections, there will be elections in Germany actually in a week's time, so on the 14th of September, for a new parliament in Germany. And the party who is leading is called AfD Populist Party. And it's an opposition party. It's populist party. They're leading in the statistics, but already, or what they say, at least 7 members of their party, all of them died suddenly within the last month or so. How's that possible? And it was not.
They got the jab.
It was not of old age or a car accident or anything like that. So, and they are apparently talking about mass deportation, about all the migrants in that country. Well, historically, Germany has been very friendly to migrants who, like Turkish population, have been working for decades in Germany. No problem at all. But now with all this flood of new migrants, and they say we want to get these people out. And by saying that as a member of that, you might end up dead because 7 people died suddenly. That's no coincidence.
Scary.
It's very scary. I would be extremely scared if I would be now moving up in the list of the AfD. And it's like, oh, now it might be my turn. They're not sitting at the breakfast table today in a relaxed way, I tell you. So it's like, and this is going to happen in a week. So very, very interested in seeing that because this could also backfire is that more people vote for them because it's like, why are we killing those people? So it's like, but, well, in a week's time, that is going to happen. So we're moving into AI, our ongoing discussion. But before we go there, it is really, especially with AI becoming that you have to maintain your brain fitness. And what I'm going to share in a minute is that we are losing our brain fitness very, very fast at the moment. And one of the main reasons, not the main reason, but one of the main reasons is the AI. So that's why I hope that a lot of people make brain fitness a habit, just like they do with body fitness, just like with exercise, moving. And we are currently having 3 products. We have master classes about specific topics, which is a workshop about dealing with your emotions, curiosity, finding out what your uniqueness is, relationships. We have a flagship training called From Fitting In to Flying Out, and a new book about Dr. Alfred Moore, a heart specialist who became an entrepreneur. So if you go to the QR code, which is here on the slide, you immediately get to the site of braingym.fitness. So I was already preluding that this is basically a chip. And new research reveals mounting concerns about artificial impact on human cognitive abilities, as well as and Roy already mentioned it today, the energy consumption of AI. So studies show that AI tools are simultaneously weakening critical thinking. I will get back to that later today, and that is extremely worrying that critical thinking skills are kind of becoming obsolete with a lot of people. And at the same time, so that is going down. What is going up is that enormous amounts of energy and electricity are being consumed by all of these LLMs, all these AI models. And it's not only the American ones, it's French ones, it's Chinese ones, whatever. Everything is like, we need more energy. But that means there will be these data centers, there will be everything else. But it's like, because these data centers require so much energy, your factory, maybe even your houses, we have in a lot of countries, I would say in Western Europe, well, maybe also we're moving to Eastern Europe, is that There's a lack of housing. There's not enough new houses being built, but I think we're very close to a situation. There might be new houses, but you have no energy. It's like, because the energy consumption of these AI data centers is really through the roof. It's really one data. Well, I don't know, but one data center consumes like half a city. It's like, soon there will be no electricity in hospitals, like I said, in schools, in factories, and so. But if we continue losing our critical thinking skills, then all of these things are discontinued. What I just said about Gaza and humanitarian aid and comparing Israel with Russia, that requires critical thinking. That is what Roy and I are trying to do on this show, is show these things, and by means of your critical thinking skills. But AI is ruining that. That can be no coincidence. And later on under health, I'm gonna share some even more shocking data. But I think it's one of the no, it's not one of the. I totally personally believe it's the most important thing what we are right now losing as humanity. That's our critical thinking skills. Well, or the 5G, we'd expect our phones and everything to be faster. Seems to be worse for what I'm seeing over the years, but the upcoming 6G technology expected to be deployed around 2030. Like with Agenda 2030, is it? That's the reason. Don't know. Promises extremely high speeds, low latency, and advanced AI-driven applications. However, it poses significant dangers and challenges, primarily in cybersecurity and privacy. Network vulnerabilities, 6G's decentralization, AI automation network introduces complex security weaknesses. Attackers may exploit supply chains, manipulate AI algorithms, and threaten encryption through quantum hacking. Data privacy risks, 6G will handle vast amounts of personal and enterprise data, increasing risks of data breaches, identity theft, and misuse of AI-driven deepfake technologies, emerging threats, autonomous AI-driven cyber attacks, exploitation of billions of interconnected IoE, Internet of Everything devices, and nation-state cyber warfare risks which will intensify. Many 5G devices, especially tiny IoE sensors or in-body devices, have constrained resources and weak encryption, making them susceptible to hacking. Infrastructure hacks, distribution, and mesh network architecture increase the attack surface and risk of denial of service, man in the middle or other network. I mean, this looks like kind of all for the digital ID kind of thing, problem, solution. And it looks to me, hey, this is, and just on the 5G one, where I live, I when I'm bringing my son to school, I pass what was Dell factory. Now it's owned by Foxconn, but still says Dell where they make the Dell. And that was a new road, maybe 10 years ago, but it's still a perfect road where all the lights were there. They replaced all the lights. I don't know, was it 2, 3? I think it was during the lockdown, during that time where people weren't, not allowed out and mask up like the. And I could see the lights, and I was like, because I had seen this, I said, they're the 5G lights. They're actually the dangerous thing. They're frequencies. And I saw all of kind of shrubbery and stuff like that dying. They just removed it. So it was killing the shrubbery and the thing. Because I just pay attention to these things. I don't know why, but it's just the way I am. And just during the week, I saw a video of a guy. He says, I'm checking this. And he took the whole light, which is exactly the lights that they put in there. He said, this is deadly. He went through it. He says, I have to give this back because a guy that's working for the installation of these gave it to me to check it. And he actually showed how dangerous it was when he opened it, that it's like the area, everything in it is deadly. It's not for the lights and the LEDs. So if it's already deadly with 5G, what are they doing with that? But I think they're going to push the digital IG. That's the whole kind of premise with this. Yeah, that if we talk about frightening, this is also frightening. Huh? But it's even more frightening because it's invisible. I'm showing a picture of the CEO of Salesforce, one of the largest sales automation companies in the world. It's the CEO, Mark Benioff, and he announced that the company has cut 4,000 customer support positions, reducing its support workforce from 9,000 to 5,000. So through the deployment of AI agents. That should not come as a surprise to, because I've been sharing that basically every week. But it's in a sense surprising because now they're starting to pop up research and companies who say, well, the promise of all these AI agents and everything, it's it doesn't do what it promised, and it's not working for us. So there are some companies who are hiring people again instead of the AI because it doesn't do what it's supposed to do. So that's why I find it surprising that this week, this guy, and he's one of the, well, he might have been even in that White House dinner. He's a very hot shot in the technology industry, that he's laying off 4,000 people. So he's like, who's fooling who? It's like there are folks who say, no, we're bringing people again because it's not working. And he says, we're going to have a 44% reduction in support staff. So is one thing about making the pain a little bit more tolerable, because these numbers are incredible. 4,000 people. And like I said before, it's not only 4,000 people. They got partners, they got children. So the 12,000 people impacted by this man's decision. And well, he says it's been that the AI agents are now handle 50% of customer conversations, which most people, including myself, hate. So you cannot talk to a human being anymore. You're stuck with an AI agent. And he says it's well, it's been 8 of the most exciting months of my career. Exciting? You're laying off 4,000 people. You call that exciting? I think you should see a doctor. So it's like, that's not exciting. That's terrible. But anyway, it's the world in which we live, and we've been talking about. But again, it requires critical thinking.
Just kind of leaving this one, but continuing on. Even when I started my career, what I did is, when I came out of college, it was a kind of getting in a 100 Dear John letter. So I went in and did another course with the government construction site supervision, and I taught myself AutoCAD. Then I got work experience with road design with the council, and they were just kind of bringing in AutoCAD. So you had incredible architects in there, and they were coming up to me, a young, I don't know, I was like 21 or something like that. And I was able to do the stuff 10 times better than any of them. And if somebody wasn't able to change to the technology, they were no longer needed when somebody could do everything on. And it's kind of like 30 years later, we look at this, and just for those that are just listening, it's a picture. I want AI to do my laundry and dishes so that I can do art and writing, not for AI to do my art and writing so I can do my laundry and dishes. And if you look at, we're talking about the critical thinking and just, I suppose, being at one with yourself, just enjoying. No, even if it's a business where you're doing design, everything now is done by AI. So something that somebody was being created before and spending maybe a day or a couple of hours creating graphics and stuff like that, you can do it in seconds in AI, and you're competing with that. And there's just like, basically what she said, the things that need to be done, but you'd rather be out painting. There's a lot of stuff like that. But unfortunately, the way that it is, I'm convinced that there's probably AI agents talking to AI agents, because everyone is thinking that they're hacking the system. Oh, I'm getting to do this, I'm getting to do this. I've seen people all day assisting, and they have all the different things doing it for the AI. I'd say we're very close to that critical point that people won't have money to buy anything, because you need to earn to make money, and they're all using the AI. And they're just going to run out, and they're all losing their jobs. You use 4,000 you just said previously. I mean, we're constantly mentioning this in the show. There's thousands and thousands, probably millions of jobs. And once the self-driving is really ramped out, which could be connected with 6G, we don't know. I mean, it's already happening with the 5G and what they're doing. Like, there's a point that no one will have the money to buy anything. And then it's all kind of social credit, social money. Hey, you have to get jabbed up. You have to do this. You have to have your digital ID or you get nothing, or you're out in the street. And we're very close to that. And I think people think AI is the best thing since sliced bread. It's actually destroying humanity.
Yeah, it's I don't know. It's about the fairy tale where you call it. It's a wolf in sheep's clothes or something like that. And that's what it is. Yeah, absolutely. So let's go to some good news. Good news, caravan. Homes from wind turbines. But before we go there, you might need some help.
Well, I mean, with the social media, I've got my team in there. They're putting out all the shorts and everything, so I get like last month 275,000 different between plays and views and stuff like that, and that's all down to a team helping me. If you're looking for a website, we're doing websites from $300 because I know there's a lot of companies out there they can charge you 10 grand and everything. And what we do is we sit down with you, we have a conversation, and we make sure exactly what you want, and we deliver. And also, we're not out to catch you where you have to do everything. We can give you an hourly rate if we're going to do changes later on, but we also teach you how to do it yourself so that it's not that we're in control. Because I've even talked to somebody during the week, because I was just explaining this when I was on a guest as a podcast, and she said she had somebody doing it and they just disappeared and they had all their passwords and everything, and she had to start from scratch. And we just want to make sure we get rid of all these scammers and everything. So you can scan the QR code or go to VA.world. So this is
Turbines.
Yeah, this is a nice one from me because I know I've mentioned this a few times and most people don't know, but they just chuck them in the ground. So Dutch designers, always the Dutch, Arnold, have crafted a compact trailer-sized home named Nestle. I don't like that name, but Nestle company I don't like. So a play on nacelle, Nacelle. Maybe that's a Dutch thing, I don't know. The top compartment it's top compartment of a wind turbine using components and decommissioned turbines at 65 meters squared, which is a decent enough size, about 376 square foot for our American listeners. These pods are built by blade made using turbine parts that are typically impossible to recycle, even for items like benches, highway barriers, or playground equipment. Inside the space is bright and cozy, finished with warm Nordic style wood, and comes fully equipped with plumbing, electricity. Blade Made has already received orders for tens of these Nacelle homes, which meet Dutch building code requirements. Joe de Kruijger of Superuse Studios, Blade Made's co-founder, emphasizes the need to find higher value uses of materials at the end of their life rather than regulating them to landfills, highlighting the channels caused by fiberglass heavy turbine. So I think that's a fantastic thing because it used to annoy me. I mean, I saw they just massive landfills and just chucking these into the ground and covering them up. It's like, oh, out of sight, out of mind. And we know we've talked about the homeless crisis and just the price of accommodation. A lot of people would be happy with something like that. Imagine, it doesn't have to be in a street like the one we see there, but imagine that in the forest, beautiful. It's a good use, and it would be a lot cheaper than starting from scratch or different types of homes. So I think it's a good initiative.
And there are boatloads of these equipment because many of these turbines are not working anymore. They're just waste. And well, they're even standing like when you talk about Netherlands, there are a lot of these things standing in lakes and in the sea and that is not working. So here you give some extra use for it. That's excellent. In India, in Chennai, is a very large city or state even, I don't know, in India, a dedicated group called the Student Sea Turtle Conservation Network. Well, I think they could have found a more sexy name, but these students are spending each night on the beach, not for partying, but for protecting the vulnerable olive ridley turtles from threats like poaching and habitat destruction. These students, they walk 14 kilometers each night during the nesting season, securing turtle eggs and ensuring the hatchlings safely reach the sea. Well, I think that's beautiful that students are doing these things. Yeah? And otherwise, yeah, like I said, people will get these hatchlings, they get the eggs, whatever, and within no time it would become extinct. Um, it's like, but it's not only that. They say is that despite facing modern threats like artificial lightning, Roy talked about the 5G and the 6G, but artificial lightning, unsustainable fishing practices, and whatever, it's like all of these things. If nothing would be done, these animals would go extinct. And these students are putting in every night, which means like they're walking the beach every night, and during the day they got to study. So I don't know when they're going to sleep, but it's like it's a beautiful initiative, and it works.
And I think for things like that, community, tribe, and just the knock-on benefit of when you're doing something good, when that's finished, they'll do other good things. You don't become bad when you're doing things like that, that you're caring for humanity. So that's a lovely thing to see.
Absolutely.
Yeah, researchers in South Korea have developed a new 3D printing glue gun that can create bone grafts directly onto fractures during surgery, filling the irregular gaps around jagged edges in real time. The device prints bone implants on the spot, eliminating the need for preventative design and production. The material used is a filament made of hydropaxate, HA, which promotes healing, and polycarbonate, biocarbonate, thermoplastic that liquefies at low temperatures, safe for tissue. The surgeon can manually control the printing direction, angle, and depth, completing the process in minutes. The filament also incorporates antibiotics, vancomycin and gentamicin, providing localized, slow-release protection against common post-surgery infections like E. coli and S. aureus. Tested successfully on rabbits from femoral fractures, the method shows no infection, enhanced bone regeneration, and better structural healing compared to traditional bone cement. The scaffolding is designed to integrate with bone tissues and gradually degrade, being replaced by new bone over time. Researchers aim to refine the antibacterial properties further and pray for human clinical trials, seeing this technology as a rapid, efficient solution for complex bone repair in operating rooms. So, another positive thing for the future.
Absolutely. So let's move into health and start with something which is not so healthy. There are now, for a couple of reasons, and I won't go in there, but the impact of the mRNA vaccines are really, well, there's a lot of data, but now research, at least in the US, is coming out because Trump is pushing that. I think it's called Operation Warp Speed. Don't give me to that name, but it's like they're pushing anything. So they have done a peer-reviewed study, and they found that mRNA vaccines are linked to 86 serious neuropsychiatric disorders. 86. So if we're talking about the rise in people with mental illness, which in itself I think is a straitjacket, but I'm going to read all of, well, the things which have been shared with us. Why? Because it's really important to know what's happening to people right now. This could be you, this could be your neighbor, this could be your friend, this could be your spouse, this could be thing. What they have seen is that homicidal ideation is 25 times more likely. Suicidal thoughts, 150 times more likely. Schizophrenia, 315 times more likely. Psychosis, 440 times more likely. Dementia, 140 times more likely. Brain clot, in the blood in your brain, 3,000 times more likely. Depression, 530 times more likely. Violent behavior, 80 times more likely. Cognitive decline, 115 times more likely. Delusions, 50 times more likely, and many more. So they say that these catastrophic neurological and psychiatric damage is likely due to toxic spike protein production in the brain of the COVID mRNA injected individuals. And then comes the point is that since approximately 80% of the population received these injections, it's not surprising what they say is that common sense has evaporated. It's gone. If you have these things, so we've been talking today a lot about critical thinking through this vaccine, is one of the reasons why your critical thinking is damaged or maybe even gone. They call it here common sense. For me, common sense is very similar to critical thinking. So this is a peer-reviewed study. This is not just one or two conspiracy guys who say this. No, this is an official study done in the US by people saying these things. So this is what's happening to our world. And this has happened to people. So it's really time to wake up and see what's happening and what everybody's doing to us and no longer accept it.
Just saw during the week that Florida banned the mandatory vaccinations, which hopefully will start to ripple across not only the states but the world. But I also mentioned don't fall for when they say mandatory. You don't have to do it, to study the word and how you do it. Researchers have developed in Oxford. Sorry, I've misplaced that one. So we might just go on to the next one for a sec.
Well, the next one is quite an interesting. This is a picture of a video where you see on the left is Putin, then is Putin, the Russian leader. The guy with his hand out is Xi, the China leader, and then skip two things to the right. There's Kim, who's the North Korean leader, and they were, well, for some kind of summit, and they were talking with each other. But part of their talk, what they were saying, were recorded. So there was a video and audio, which of a recording of their conversation, which is growing through, well, obviously through translation. But what they were talking about is that, well, clearly they were seeking immortality as transhumans. And see, the Chinese guy, he said he was talking about people living up to 140 or under 50 years. They all said is like, well, that is what we also want. And these days, and well, these guys are in their 70s, and they said, well, people rarely live to the 70s, but these days at 70 years, you're still a child. Clearly Putin said something like, I want to achieve immortality and everything around that. So this is what these guys were talking about. And I saw this morning, this was a few days ago. And this morning I saw a message that China has approached Reuters and a lot of these media outlets that they should remove this message. It's like they put a lot of pressure on media because this is basically gone viral because these guys are talking like, hey, we can become transhuman, we can be double our current age, and well, that's what we like, and that's going to happen. So it's like the most interesting thing is that they're already pushing now for all the news agencies to remove it, but this has been captured on video and audio, so it's already out there.
I think that was all orchestrated. Do you think something could be said in China that wasn't to be put out there, that was done? And when they say, hey, take it down, and writers, don't trust writers, it's like when they say that, they know that it'll go extra viral, because then people think, oh, it's true. That was intentionally done.
But it's again is like getting that message across of transhumanism.
Yeah, but it's like if your leader says, hey, this is good, let's get this chip into our armor, let's put this in thing red. Well, if Putin says do it, or if he says do it, yeah, it must be good. All orchestrated. So that was intentionally leaked. That was done on purpose. That's my thoughts. You can actually go back to the first one because I've located it, so apologies for that. So, teeth regrowth drug. Human clinical trials have begun since September, October 24. Koyolo University Hospital and Kitano Hospital launched the world's first human trial of a drug that blocks USAJ, a protein normally prevents teeth from forming. Trial design phase involves adults 30 to 64 missing at least one tooth, mainly to test safety and dosage. If successful, the next stage will involve children 2 to 7 with congenital tooth agnosis. Blocking USAG1 removes inhibition of BMP Wind signaling, which is key for tooth bud development in animals like mice, and for its treatment produced fully formed new teeth, which is amazing. The therapy has been developed for these trials. If results are positive, the drug could be available around 2030, offering an alternative to dentures and implants. So, interesting one. I mean, sometimes people think, hey, we've got 2 sets of teeth. Maybe we've got more with this.
Yeah, and that helps people with all of these toxic other treatments where they put in artificial stuff in.
Oh, it's all, yeah. It like they tell them it doesn't affect you. It does. It's proven to affect you. So if you can get teeth that grow like this, I'm assuming it will be a lot better.
Absolutely.
So researchers at the University of Oxford have developed a novel 3D printing technique to create brain tissue using human neutral stem cells, marking a significant breakthrough in regenerative medicine for brain injury. This work, published in Natural Communications, represents the first time natural cells have been 3D printed to mimic complex architecture of the cerebral cortex. The researchers generated 2-layered brain tissue structures by creating biolinks from using pluripotent stem cells reprogrammed from skin tissue to a base state capable of becoming many tissue types. These biolinks were then printed onto a layer of tissue construct that maintained its structure for weeks. When implemented into mouse brains, the printed human neural tissue integrated both structurally and functionally with the host brain tissue. Notably, the implant cells showed signaling activity, indicating communication with the mouse brain cells, demonstrating functional integration beyond mere structural presence. This technique offers hope for personalized treatments of brain injuries, which affect around 70 million people worldwide annually, most of which have no effective treatment options currently. The ability to print customized brain tissue implants derived from patients' own stem cells could drastically improve prospects for repairing traumatic brain injuries. Senior authors highlight that while the technology is still in early stages and cannot yet recreate the complete cellular complexity of human brain development, this approach is a substantial step forward in engineering both living brain tissue and controlled arrangements and basic functional unit resembling the cerebral cortex. So, I mean, I mentioned it before about the correlation between mice and rats and stuff like that. And, you know, when you got this kind of working for mice, that's very promising. And I know that there's a lot of people suffer from that.
Absolutely. I didn't know that a date, and I'm talking about the fruit, is really actually one of the most healthy foods in the world. So the header is, as a person can live with only dates and water. And you would not miss much, because if you look at the picture, I'm going to read it for the folks who are only listening. Dates, they got magnesium, phosphor, iron, copper, silver, silicon, manganese, sulfur, potassium, thiamine, niacin, sodium. That's all in just one date. So it's not that after, well, a certain period of only water and eating date, you would be extremely unhealthy. I would say most people will become more healthy if they have this thing instead of eating McDonald's shit. It's like, so it's really, I think, well, at least in Western countries, not in African countries with a date and Middle East, but so dates are one of the most healthy food there is. So replace some of your junk food, just eat a couple of dates, and they even taste good.
Yeah, I saw this. Cancel your Tinder subscription and use the money to buy dates instead of trying to get dates.
Yeah.
Inspiration. How can we be creative, Arnold?
Yeah, I talked a lot today, well, also in other shows, about critical thinking, whatever. Why is being creative so crucial? Because, well, number one, I think AI's creativity is rather limited. I'm not saying it's not creative, but it's limited. That might change with artificial general intelligence, but to keep your brain functioning and not degrading as is happening at the moment, you got to be creative. But then I hear a lot of people say, "Oh, but I'm not creative. I cannot do these things." But then you have, well, actually, there's a NASA study from years ago which found out that the most creative we were between 7 and 9 years old. And I mean, extremely creative, but since that time, our creativity has been suppressed. So it's not that if I ask people, and then whether it's a room of 100 or 10 people or whatever, say who's creative, there will be maybe one or two who have raised their hand. Most people, no, I'm not creative. You were as a child. So it is in you. You are creative, but it's like the same with everything. If you don't use it, you lose it. And creative doesn't mean is that we all got to be sculptors and painters. And I like this quote. It's from a Harvard professor, Sean Aker. And he says, the happiest people are those that express themselves and create every day. Whether this is a song, a souffle, a spreadsheet, or whatever, the choice is yours. Yeah, so creativity doesn't have to be like, well, I cannot paint or I cannot write, or again, there's always something you can do. Add one new ingredient to your meal. Instead of going always the same road to your job, take another road. Or instead of always at work, talk to the same people, talk to a person you never speak with. Or don't always look at thrillers on Netflix. Look at a documentary about nature. That's also creative. So creativity is and has been always important, but now in this AI era in which we are, it is much, much more. And everyone is creative and everyone can be creative. So I hope you will apply this in your life.
And I've read his book, Sean's book. I don't know, is it called The Happiness Principles or something like that, but it's a very good book, enjoyable book. So, a Virginia farm, the Arcadia Center for Sustainable Food, which offers a veteran farmers training program designed to help newly retired military personnel and military spouses transition into civilian life through farming. The program addresses dual challenges, the physical and entrepreneurial aptitude of veterans, and a looming shortage of farmers in the US, with an aging average farm population of 56 years and a predicted deficit of 700,000 farmers over 20 years. Arcadia provides training in both practical and classroom architectural skills, capitalizing on veterans' discipline, endurance, and team spirit. The farm is partly veteran-led and veteran-owned, with trainers like Imthia Sutton, a 20-year Army veteran who, after leaving military service with PTSD, depression, and anxiety, found farming to be a therapeutic and fulfilling mission. And just on that, I mean, on all of my podcasts, I've had loads of vets, and they all suffer from PTSD, or the people, so that's a normal thing. The innovation aims to play veterans while they learn farming, assist them in finding affordable land, ensuring market access for their organic and local produce. This effort serves both reinvigorate the farming sector and offer veterans a renewed way to serve their communities. Military spouses also participate, gaining purpose and fulfillment as they contribute to the farm's work. This veteran-focused program highlights new opportunities for service and healing beyond traditional military roles, promoting mental wellness and community support through agriculture. The program represents an innovative approach to veteran rehabilitation and community service, addressing both agricultural workforce shortages and the mental health needs of veterans and their families. This endeavor is veteran-owned, veteran-led, and dedicated to veterans, offering a new mission that relaxes and restores those who have struggled. So I think it's a great thing, and I hope, not just in the States, I hope that more countries start doing this.
I think it's a beautiful initiative, and it's really what we would call a win-win. It's good for the veterans, and it's also good for the declining farmers, because the problem is a lot of their sons and daughters don't want to become farmers. So,
Exactly.
and in this way, you combine it. I've been a guest on a podcast from Adam Peters, who is very, very active in helping veterans making that transition. And well, it's not working the way it's being done right now. And this is a beautiful, beautiful initiative, which I think helps everybody. So really, really, really very nice.
So that's all for this week. So just on all the things we said with the brain gym, the VA, and my own stuff, you scan the QR code or go to roycollin.com. As I mentioned, instead of doing this because we're spending too much time, we're not getting donations coming, and we get one or two, but it's not covering costs. So what we're doing is we're setting up on the Substack, and we're still going to do a show weekly, but a lot less, and maybe go deep into one or two things for 15-30 minutes. And I'll have the link for the Substack, and there's the free Substack as well. There's some stuff that are there, but we're going to do one that's specific to the people that subscribe. And as I mentioned, it'll be about $10. So, and if you have any comments, let us know. And until next week, take care.